Basta salamat at ika'y isinilang. Di pangkaraniwan, para siyang superhero. Hinarap lahat ng pagsubok, yung iba hindi biro. Meron siyang misyon, kaya walang takot sumabak. Mga buhay na nagkasalalay sa kanyang pangarap. Parang pelikula, action, adventure, drama. May konting comedy, love story na pangmasa. Galing sa wala, akala mo talo.
We're live. Hey, good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of Hoops Coach, our Hoops Coaches Talakayan. And I'm Coach Melky Villanueva. I'm from Quezon Province, Lucena City. With me, we have Coach David Bessie from a chaplain from Bacolod.
Good morning.
And also we have Coach Enrico Quintana from Washington, D.C.
Good morning, guys.
Yes, and before we start, I would like to thank our sponsor, NABA, North American Basketball Association, the biggest basketball association in North America. Pavilion, Washington, D.C., Coach Enrico Quintana. B-Mart, Filipino Grocery, ECQ Apparel, and Shomai King. Yan. And also Team Rich the Unreachable, and Spartan Basketball. We train good character, we train good leaders. Thank you, Coach David Bessie. And before we start, and before I introduce our guest for today, I would like to ask Coach David Bessie to lead us in our opening prayer.
Absolutely. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to get to meet Coach Rick and spend some time together. But even more than that, Lord, besides what's going on in this panel, we want to lift up those that are suffering right now in Luzon from the storm. We ask you, Lord, to intervene, to move the workers where they need to rescue, and Lord, to comfort right now, we ask. And so we thank you for what you're going to do through us today as we learn and grow. In your name, Jesus, amen and amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, laban, coaches. And before we start, our guest for today is really a mentor for me, because when I start coaching, he's my first coach. All about basketball, all about what you call that, handling leagues. I learned it from this man. He's a former college coach and also a basketball women coach and a head of Courage Sports Institute. Yes, welcome, Coach Rick Berry. Hi, Coach.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Coach, our topic for today is about coaches. The character development of coaches, that into being them, the leadership and the skills. But before we start, Coach, every guest we always ask, who is Coach Rick, about all the things that Coach Rick, Coach?
Well, just quickly.
Yes, Coach.
I graduated from a Christian school in the late 90s with a degree in English, and thought my life would be coaching basketball and teaching high school English in the US. And then that wasn't working out, and my mother found an advertisement about go to the Philippines and coach basketball. So off I went to a place called Masbate. And in 1995, those of you who weren't in the Visayas, there was no telephone, there was very little power, and I still don't put ice in my drinks because they beat it into my bald head. Don't put ice in your drinks. So my first experience in the Philippines was really out in the province. Spent some time in Cebu, and then went back to the US, did some things, and I met Coach Mel, I think way back in 2004 or 2005. So since then, I've been really doing, being involved where I can be involved, being a foreigner and a foreign coach in the Philippines. You know, I'm trying to be available to help when I'm asked. Sometimes there are culture clashes, but I think over the years, I've learned the basketball culture, and maybe they've gotten more used to me. So it's been a pretty good relationship, I think, overall all these years.
Yes, Coach. Coach, when we talk about coaches, it's like NBTC, their main option, they developing skill, building character. And how important it is, Coach, we talk about coaches with building character, the coach's character, Coach.
Well, I think that's the foundation. I'm not sure who's on the call, what level you're involved with, or you were coaching or playing, but I think have a coaching philosophy and kind of a philosophy in life, but especially if you're a young coach What is your coaching philosophy? What do you really value? What are your priorities in life? Because I think that impacts what you value as a coach. And we can talk about, are you a fast breaking team? Are you a pressure team? Are you this, you that? But what is your character? And then how much of yourself are you willing to risk? And I think you've probably heard it before. We need to be who we are. You know, I can't try to copy Coach Mel any more than he can copy Coach Dave, any more than, you know, we can copy whoever. I can say, well, Alex Compton, Coach Alex Compton, oh, he's an American, I should copy him. Well, his personality is different than my personality. But your question about character, I think, it's always about integrity. It's always about communication. It's always about, I think, modeling the behavior we want in our players. What did you say, Coach Mel?
Yes, Coach. I think, Coach, go ahead, Coach.
No, and I think, a lot of it is, the idea of grow or bloom where we're planted. I think we really have to invest where we are and make where we are the big time. When I was in Masbate, that was the most important basketball. That was the center of the basketball world to me. And then when it was Bohol, or when it was, here in Lucena 15 years ago, I was new, Coach Mel was young, but the idea of character, I don't want to get overly religious straight away, but I think, Jesus invested in 12 people, and maybe he was the greatest leader ever. And I think the second point is, bloom where we're planted, and then what's our coaching tree? What's our legacy? Who are we investing in? I guess I'm kind of proud that maybe I was ahead of the curve on that. There were 2 or 3 guys younger than me. That's the way it tends to happen. And it was just, I poured everything I knew into them. Coach Dick Vigamora and, Coach Mel. They were willing. And whatever I knew about sports psychology or basketball or leading a Christian life, I poured into them, and I tried to be an example and model that. So I think we need to really think about, who are we training and who on our staff? Do we trust our assistant coaches? And are we training them and equipping them to someday be head coaches? Because, for me, that's really what I'm proud of. I just turned 53, and now I look back, yeah, still young, but I guess here in Lucena, I look at the history, right? And there was a guy when I first came. I guess I'll use his name, Coach Otto. He was a top guy, and then by the time he got to be about my age, then there was a younger crew, right? Oliver Bunyi was suddenly that 30-year-old guy that, came up. And then I had a couple of years, and now it's Coach Mel. Sorry to say, Coach Mel, it won't be very long. It'll be somebody else.
Yeah. Before we continue, Coach, I would like to acknowledge Coach Horacio Lim, the head of the UCBL and also the Chinese League. Hi, Coach Yan.
Thank you.
Coach Horacio.
Good morning.
We're
Sorry,
starting
I'm
now.
late.
It's okay, Coach. We're talking about the coach's character, and
Yes.
Coach Victor is sharing it now.
Yeah, and I think pursuing excellence. Are we pursuing excellence? What is it about our life? What is it about our team that's really excellent? Not just better than everyone else or not good enough, but are we really chasing excellence? I think that's a really important part of what we do as coaches and what we do as leaders, because I think the title coach, especially in Asia and especially in the Philippines, that's a big title. And as you know, wherever you go, it's coach, coach, coach. We really impact the lives of people. And I think that sometimes it's hard, well, again, being a bald white guy wearing glasses, sometimes the pressure is hard because there isn't almost any place I can go and hide. No matter where I go, people notice me. And after a while, I know it becomes hard because you say, "What? My goodness, you know, if I slip and use a curse word, if I do something, you know." And then especially in social media, oh, bah, 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 bah. But again, I think the other thing, as far as character goes, the character of a coach, I think we have to forgive ourselves. I mean, I mentioned the pressure. We can feel pressure from a lot of different places. But I think demonstrating self-forgiveness. Our players make mistakes. We make mistakes. We say the wrong thing at the wrong time. So I think one of the characteristics of a successful coach, always willing to self-evaluate and willing to change, but then willing to say, I was wrong. And I think that's a real change in the coaches that I see now. When I first came, it was very top-down. Right? The coach was never wrong. Now, I think we're a lot more open with our players. I think there's more transparency. Again, Coach Lim, and coming from his perspective, maybe the Chinese perspective is still very top-down. And again, yes, we are who we are. But I think as society changes, I know when I first came to Lucena, there was no SM. Right? SM, the malls have really changed the youth, and it's really changed basketball. You know, and in younger players making money. Boy, when I first came, you know, guys in the province didn't make money. Now, there's a Governor's Cup is one of the big leagues. Yeah, if you don't pay guys, 3,000, 4,000 pesos a game to play, they don't want to play. Right? So that's like another level of basketball and level of experience we need to get. It's not just, hey, I have a good team. It's, you know, how much will I pay? They give sneakers, or they give better food, or, you know, they have money for an import, or I have a connection in Manila, come play with me, I can get you to Manila. There's just so much that goes into being a coach now that wasn't a coach even 10 years ago.
Yes, I agree with you.
And
well,
go.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But sorry, in terms of Chinese basketball, I came from Chinese community, but I spent most of my time in the Filipino community playing basketball. I spent something like 20 years in the Filipino community, like NCAA, UAAP, intercollegiate basketball. In Chinese, basketball is different. Number one, winnings is very important in Chinese. So it's really hard to calm them down if they're losing. But nowadays, there is also understand how we have to accept losing. So it's a matter of accepting and know your role, winning and losing. And I feel that is important. Right, coach, you say that players now is very choosy. They want to play or they don't want to play. Everybody is giving money for him to play. But I feel the wrong thing is it ourselves, it's the management, because we like to win. So we tendency want to get good players. That is normal, but we come to a point that getting that particular players to play for it is very important. So you give out a lot of money. Once these players get used to get a lot of money, tendency they won't play if somebody invite them to play at the lesser one. That is the character, and that is wrong. And then we should teach these players how to really behave. That money is not everything. Although everybody needs money, but money is not really everything. It's about the character. Do you want to just go out and say, hey, these guys, if no money, doesn't want to play? So it's very deteriorating, especially when you are with your kids or with your family. People is murmuring beside that this guy only money can help him to play before. So that it will be a black eye on our side in the future. What is now is that we really have to teach this youngster how really basketball is to play your hearts out, to give your best. Whatever the result or the outcome of the game, we should always think that, do we play better than the other team? Do we deserve to win? Right? Something like that. Because I feel that players nowadays is very choosy, very hard to control because of their attitude.
Yes, coach.
That's what I felt. I hope, I don't know if you will agree with me.
Yes, Coach
And I
Horacio,
hope that we coaches really has to be ourselves and know how to take good care, not only to the skill in basketball or winning the basketball, but most important is to how to take good care of them and show them the real character of being a good player and the attitude towards a basketball game.
Well, yes, and I think something that is coming out of the COVID that I really hope continues is this level of coaches communicating in this growing coaching community. That's something I've always thought with Cy Young. We go to our different camps. There's so much competition. I know we're friendly to each other's face, but behind the back, we can't wait to hurt each other. But now I see so many people from all over the world really learning from each other, helping each other. And I really hope that continues, because I think one way to combat money is all players want to know how we can help them accomplish their dream. Whether we're coaching 12-year-olds or 22-year-olds that dream of the PBA and an Asian league or whatever they're dreaming of, we earn their trust when they think we can help them get and reach their dreams. So the more that we can level up, the more that we can improve ourselves as coaches and as men. That's another thing that I think we can have great impact in our community by being men of character.
Yes, I agree with you.
Again, there's a generation of kids who are being raised by Lola or Ate or someone else, right?
Yeah, spoiled.
Or dad's abroad working, mom's abroad working. Who's raising our kids? And especially our boys. There are so many, they can get on the internet, whether it's, whatever they can find on the internet, a lot of it is good, a lot of it is bad. So we have a lot of kids with a lot of gadgets and a lot of free time and not a lot of male role modeling. I look at my own life. My father died when I was 11, but I had a grandfather that was around, and then even in my coaching life now, I tend to find older guys, and I don't see them as father figures, but I'm always looking for an older guy. And I don't think I'm unique in that. I think men, especially boys, they're looking to be told what to do. I think the young people get a bad reputation as being rebels or not listening. I don't agree. I think, especially boys, they like to know what's the guideline? What are the rules? Now, they may try to break the rules. They may try to see what they can get away with, but they like structure, right? Kids do like structure. They like the discipline, especially if they feel that it's helping them. And sometimes I think that maybe we don't think about that enough.
Yes, Coach. Thank
Okay,
you, Coach. Coach David Bess.
Yeah, I get preachy, sorry.
Coach. It's okay, Coach. Thank you, Coach. Coach David Bessie.
Well, it's great to have a good discussion in the morning, amen.
It's good to see you again.
Good morning. Coach, when we're talking about character, sometimes we mix apples and oranges, and so I want to get really specific about this because, in the normal sports arena, when we're talking about character, we're talking sometimes about things that are trying to be pressed in from the outside. In other words, we're adjusting behavior based on a certain model, and then we're pushing these folks into, circles, into squares, and vice versa, and so forth, into this, maybe a coach's desire for the players to act a certain way. And then there's the other side, which is the internal transformation. As a chaplain, you understand what I'm talking about, where we're bringing a spiritual change in someone's life, and it's going to take a long time. It's not something you can just manipulate in a day or a week. or sometimes even years. Now, if you look at someone like Abueva, you know, and the Calvin Abueva, we see a transformation in his life, but that took some time. That's not, you know, it wasn't overnight. So can you speak on that, Coach, from those two different avenues where we got the external life coaching, where we're pushing, and then the other side?
Oh, well, I think the Philippines is an interesting place whether it's apples or oranges, because it's such a religious country, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a spiritual country or a Christian country. Like where I come from, you don't pray before you practice, you don't pray. Filipino teams pray all the time. I mean, it's almost amazing, right? We pray before water break. I mean, there's just always. But then the game ends, you know, it's you know, who can get to the beer house quicker, you know. So it's like, how do you help players take Jesus or God out of a box? See, we have our Jesus box. This is how we act here. This is how we act there. So I think it's helping them tear down their boxes so that they are who they are all the time. Because I think that helps them as a player, it helps them in life. And you're right, there is no, okay, I became a Christian on this date. It's a process. You know, it's a journey. And that's what I said about forgiving ourselves. I think looking at the spiritual side of things, I mean, there's that holy war going on within us. And Satan doesn't want us to get closer to God, to get closer to Jesus. He's a great accuser. So any little mistake, oops, you know, I made a mistake on the internet, and then guilt takes over, and then I'm not good enough. And then before you know it, you know, you're doing something that you wouldn't normally do. And then again, so then I get in my other box. Well, now I'm going to put on my mask and I'm going to go pretend that I'm something I'm not, but inside I'm hollow and it's bothering me. So I think it's helping. I mean, again, I think it's really important that we meet our players where they are, you know, and we're not judgmental. This is the way I choose to lead my life because I think this is best for me. Jesus is my head coach, but you need to make that decision for you. It's a personal thing. And I'm going to be here. I'm going to help you. I'm going to model it. We're going to have conversations about it. But I'm not judging you as a bad person if you don't accept what I accept right away. But then I think the orange part of that is, from a coaching perspective, I think it helps me win. You know, and it's something I've noticed on, I don't know how many of these that I've attended or listened to or been a part of. And it seems like people are afraid to say winning is important, right? Well, we're trying to be the best version of ourselves. You know, I'm going to try to improve you as a player, and if you improve, we'll improve. You know, and the opponent is ourselves. And I believe that too, and I talk that way. But I believe that because I think that's the best way to win. I think we win the game when we focus on that. If I didn't think that would help me win the game, I'm not so sure I would do it. You know, Coach Lim talked about how important winning is. I think it is. And I think admitting that to ourselves and letting our players know winning is important. And because it's important, this is the way I think we need to practice. This is the way I think we need to play. This is the kind of character I think you need to have as a person, right? Because if you're always doubting yourself, I guarantee you that guy in the fourth quarter you can't depend on. Or
yeah, absolutely.
Is there someone else talking?
The how is important, amen. The how you win, not just
right.
that you win.
and again, the psychology of I won't say the name, but when I was first here, there was a player with a big reputation. Oh, I can hear somebody talking. And really, and something we had to help him overcome was to risk. Everyone thought he was a great player. So if he missed the shot, everyone would say, ooh, he missed the shot. He didn't want to shoot. He didn't want to play. Right? He was a great player in the second quarter, but in the fourth quarter, his reputation was more important than the game. And that's where the apples and the oranges, I don't know what they become, something else, because I think they're intertwined. No, that confidence, that character, who the player is shines in the fourth quarter. And then who can make the mistake? We lose that game, but can bounce back. That guy that throws the ball away or makes the mistake, or the other team just makes a great shot. Sometimes the ball just goes in. I remember the Celtics playing Toronto. Was it 0.5 seconds, and the guy throws this great pass, and it goes in. Like, okay, now what do you do? Right? The character of the player to come back the next game is so important. And the character of the coach. How do we respond to that? Oh, you were late on the rotation. You didn't listen. You didn't talk on defense. Oh, it's awful. No, okay. No, it's like,
Yes.
It's like getting bad ice in masbate, right? You have a stomach problem, and then it's gone. Right? You have to move on.
Yeah, that's right, Coach. The fun, it's more fun being a coach in the Philippines, right?
Well, I read something. Everyone wants to be a coach until it's time to do what coaches do.
Yeah, that's true. So, Coach, I'll go back and we'll talk some more in a little bit, okay? Thank you.
I hope I answered that question.
Thank you,
Oh,
Coach.
you did. That's fine. Yeah.
Coach Enrico.
Good morning, Coach. I was been following you, and I see your. I was like pretty much amazed about what you do there in the Philippines, and helping kids, teaching coaches. Everything that the only thing, Coach, that my question is only one, so we can get all the turns. I know a lot of us wanted to ask you some. As Coach, from here, when you do the clubs and all those, but because you're how experienced coach you are here and successful you are here in the US, what actually, Coach, that when you get there in the Philippines, and then what the first thing that you see that, oh, this is what I wanted to do this because this is actually the things that I see that can help them and make improve them for the experience that you had here in the US, Coach.
Well, what did I see that I really wanted to improve? Well, again, I was a single guy looking for friends. So I was looking to help build a coaching community.
Okay.
But it's taken a long time. And the realization that I need to be in the background, whether it's pride or whether it's whatever it is, I think we all want to be in the front at least a little bit. And it took me a long, long time to realize, maybe my job was to really pour everything I knew into a guy like Coach Mel. And then it's going to take him 5 or 10 years to gain credibility in the basketball community. And then it's that guy that makes it happen, and that's okay. The other one I mentioned, Coach Mel Villanueva. He finished his bachelor's and then he got a master's degree and now he's abroad, and I'm just so proud to know that I knew him in the beginning. He's famous, but I knew him before. So that's something that I really wanted to see here. And the other idea I really wanted to bring that I don't think has been really successful is the idea of better players playing against better players. I think we as a basketball community, at least in the province, our better players don't practice and play against each other enough. I was really, really excited to be part of the first MBTC programs because that's what that was. We took the best kids in our community and they practiced against each other. And now, Coach Mel and I could probably go through the list of names. The top players in our province all came from that first or second team, and not that coaching hasn't improved and players haven't improved, but there's a 2-year window where so many players developed. So those are kind of two things that I wanted to bring from the U.S. And maybe more sports psychology. I think that's still a growing need. I guess those are three things.
That's very important for sports psychology.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you, Coach.
One time,
Appreciate that.
because one time, Coach Rick, I invited Coach Calvin to our team. Last week he talked about sports psychology.
Well, yeah, and the balance of skill development versus playing. And I know in the age of COVID, so much is online. But again, I'm older now, and a lot of my ideas are old school. I think players improve by playing 1-on-1, 3-on-3, 5-on-5. I get criticized. I don't care how many balls they can juggle. I don't care how many cones they can run around. I just know the way I grew up playing basketball, and the better players that I've met. Sure, you need to improve your skills, but you get better by playing against better players, right? You're the best 15-year-old kid in your barangay, so you go find older kids that kick you in the butt and force you to improve, because all that, all the skill development doesn't help them when the coach puts them on the bench. It doesn't help them when the other player gives them an elbow, right? We're teaching kids to play with the ball in a safe environment, but even the best players, in a 40-minute game, are going to hold the ball 4 or 5 minutes. So what do they do with the rest of that time? Right? Do they move without the ball? Do they pass? Do they defend? Do they rebound? And those are things that you need to learn on the court with other players.
Yes, Coach. Thank you, Coach. Coach, do you have a presentation to share us, Coach, or you're okay with this, Coach?
Well, I was putting one together, and then I looked at the other speakers, and I didn't see many presentations, so I didn't do one. I'm sorry.
It's okay, Coach. Now, Coach, we go to the coach's character. We finish coach's character. Now we go to how important is the coach's leadership.
Yes. Again, I guess 3 areas for me would be like self-control. We talked about coaching tree, and then ownership. So the self-control part of it is, it gets back to maybe character. What do we value? But how are our players playing? Like, are we more demanding of our players than we are of ourselves? Right? If we're always losing control of our emotions, we're losing control of our team, we're losing control of the situation, then how can we really expect them to control themselves? And as I become an older coach, I realize a lot of what I really need to do is trust them to play. Like, I forget who said it, but practice chaos leads to game peace. I know it's Coach Wooden, right, the famous UCLA coach, that talked about practice is for coaches and games is for players. I know that even our most focused players take 5 seconds, 7 seconds to refocus. Even your most focused player, when they make a mistake, it takes a little time. But I think we as coaches overcoach. Oh, I've got this brilliant idea here. Here's the play. And we're asking them to think and react and recover mentally, and it's really unfair. So it's being controlled enough to trust what we did in practice. Again, we all have players that lose control. Something bad happens, and you almost have to put them on the bench because they've lost control. You can't trust them on the court. So I think us modeling self-control, and then again, not to get too deep into sports psychology, but how we're communicating and what we're communicating, I think is really, really important as a leader. And then again, how do we handle wins and losses? That's really important. because that's a life skill now. We're not always going to win. Right? It's going to rain. Typhoon's going to come, and we're not going to have Wi-Fi, and it's going to be hot, and you just have to learn to bounce back. And life isn't fair. The referee will make a bad call. It's going to happen, right? The management, something's going to happen. We know that. So how do we really handle that from a leadership perspective? So how do we help our players overcome that in the game and then in life? See, and then coaching tree. I'm really, the older I get, the more and more important I think that is, because that reflects on us. I know in the pros, Popovich, right? They always talk about Greg Popovich and how many other coaches in the NBA learned from the Spurs, right? Or, so I think really thinking about as leaders, who do we associate with? And then who are we investing our knowledge in? And then being proud of those people. I think historically with Philippine basketball, again, I disagree, let's have a discussion. I think it's been really hard, if we're honest, to push people up. Maybe we bring them to our level, and then we want to stay on top. It's really hard to push guys up. And then sometimes you push a person up, and it feels like he's giving you a kick in the face. So again, it's helping people get up, and then helping them to feel like they should just go. And then ownership. Something I've learned during this pandemic, an idea that I really want to put into practice is, it isn't like with assistant coaches, give them like, okay, you're in charge of shooting today. They come up with the drills, everybody teaches the drills, everybody owns it. It isn't, oh, my fault or your fault. Everybody owns it, right? We're all in the boat together. And the idea that, like, I coach my assistant coaches, and they coach the captains who coach the younger players. See, because then there's great accountability to each other. I don't want to make a mistake because, well, if I'm a player, I don't want to make a mistake because coach is going to yell at somebody else for not training me right, right? If the captain makes a mistake, well, then it's the assistant coaches that didn't train them right. Or if that first year player makes a mistake, I'm looking to the veterans to say, why didn't you train them right? So it's just another way of thinking about ownership. So everybody's working together, everyone's accountable to somebody else, and there's no such thing as it's not my fault. What do you guys think about that?
Coach Horacio.
Well, let me ask you, Coach Rick, how do you handle those players, those parents, coaching from behind you?
Yeah, see that?
How do you handle that?
So those are hard discussions, and I think
parents,
and
parents coaching their young ones.
Well, and it gets complicated because of, Filipino culture, or I'll say Asian culture, is very much, who is your clan, right? What's your barkada? Utang o? Who do you owe? Who owes you? Those relationships are so important. And everyone knows that's the mayor's kid, right? If it's the fisherman coaching his kid, it's very easy to be strong. Stop doing that. But what if it's the governor? What if it's the mayor? What if it's somebody important? What if it's our landlord? Then it gets complicated. And I think it gets back. So I think it's relationships, and maybe what I said before about if we're men of character, others trust, and I think we lean on that. Regardless of the relationship, you can say, whether it's Koya, please help me. It's always, can you help me help your child? When you're saying something from the stands, it's different than what I'm saying. It's hurting your child. And I know you don't want to hurt your child, so let's work together on this. And I think, whether it's the fisherman or whether it's the mayor, I think communication with parents is something that again, when I started, it was my way or the highway. But there are some things you can do. Put your bench away from the crowd, right? You don't want parents sitting behind you. But so yeah, I guess my answer there would be relationship. And, you know, that's coaching is not scientific. I think coaching is more of an art than it is a science.
Yeah.
You know, there is an ABCD. It's, you know, this is how you do it with this parent. This is how you do it. It's different depending on the parents, I'm afraid. But earning the trust of the player. If the player can go home and say, Dad, you know what? Coach is really trying to help me. You know, that can help too. But again, family relationships, it's hard to know what's going on at home.
You're right, Coach. Coach Horacio, Coach Vic. Relationship is important if you're coaching, and you have to know more about their family, because there is a trust, Coach. If you build relationship, the kids will entrust you. The parents will trust you, their kids. It's the kind of trust that in the relationship. If you have that, it's easy, because if you bench the kid or whatever happened in the court, the parents is okay with it.
Yes, the problem nowadays is I can see, because I am running a league. The problem is that the parents only coach one guy, that is his son or his pamangkin, whatever it is,
Right.
and he is only guided for that particular person. Whereas the coach, it's the whole team, right? It's the
Right.
5 players on the floor. The problem is the parents is keep on shouting or coaching for the individual he wants, and then that guy will lose the focus on the team, because he will follow the father's instruction than rather follow the coach's instruction. And that's a big problem for the team, right? Do you agree
Right.
with me? So usually during my early times, I'm very strict. I said to the players, now, if you want your parents to coach you, you better stop and go home. Let him coach you all the way at home. But in my team, you have to follow me. Whether we are going to win, we are going to lose, it is at my instruction. That I'm very strict about that one. But I can see, because of the passion of all what Coach Rick said, your angkan, your kapatid, your lolo, your lola, go and watch your game. Nowadays, it's really hard to embarrass the kid in front because of the situation. So I would suggest that sometimes we'll talk to the kid or talk to the parents after the game. So how they should behave. But it's really a hard how to stop the parents from coaching on the sideline, because the parents is only coaching on a particular one.
Right.
So so that's, I found it very, very disturbing. So I'm just asking Coach Rick how you come about, how you can handle this situation, and how you're going to do. Let's share it to some other coaches, because some coaches are young. They are afraid to say things, especially Coach Rick said, is the mayor's son or whatever, official son. But I should let them understand, once you put your son or your kid in my team, it's my call. It's not your call, because I'm the coach, right?
Right. So I think as coaches, build a relationship with, whether it's your school head or your athletic director or somebody else in authority, and they need to fight that battle, right? If you can organize a parents group, so there's peer pressure of the parents, so that the parents police themselves. Okay, you have a parent meeting in the very beginning, you're thinking, this is how we agree to act. See, again, it's a standard. Okay, these are the standards of play for the players. This is what we expect from the parents. And then the parents have to hold themselves accountable. So if you have somebody else that can do that for you, an older teacher, somebody else in the community that can sit in the stands and say, whoa, too much. right? Or if you're organizing a league, put that in the rules, that the table management has the right to eject spectators. Now, because does that create a bigger problem sometimes? Yes. But again, it's relationship. If there's somebody at the table, the technical committee, the head, that can have those conversations with people, I think that helps.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
Oh, but then as a coach, again, as you said, there are some things you control. Don't put that player on your team. No, I mean really, because if that's going, and again, it's because I want to win, and that well, he's a good player, he's the best 14-year-old, he's the best 20-year-old.
So you try to kick him out from the team.
Well, now again, what does the rest of the team feel about that? But if the team is about team, see, and that gets down to, I mean, all of these things are so related. What is your offense? Are you stressing ball movement and player movement? Or is it high ball screen, right? Okay, I'm going to dribble between my legs, I'm going to make a move, and I'm going to, if that's your offense, then yeah, you need that guy. But if your offense is we share the ball, then that's really a message that we're. And again, I'm a big Celtic fan. I mean, and it's easy to criticize from across the ocean, but you look at pro coaches, the players have all the power. But here in the Philippines, I think we as coaches still have the power.
Yeah.
And so I think we can't be afraid. And we're hired to be fired. And, right?
Well, my other option is that to sit that guy on the bench.
Right.
Not necessarily throw him out of the team. Sit him on the bench so that the parents cannot coach him. He can coach whatever it is, but he will not get into your flow of action. Sit that player on the bench. That is my other option.
Coach, may I butt in? Actually, I had that problem when I was handling elementary and high school teams.
That is the time where those parents and uncles will come in.
So what I did is I set a meeting with the parents, and I tell them that during the game, I coach, you just watch. If you want to teach your kids, teach them at home, but not during the game. That's what I did.
Yeah, and again,
in the Philippines basketball.
But again, getting the good parents to influence the ones that aren't behaving as the way you want. Peer pressure is powerful, and it's building a relationship with the parents of the best player, because they create your culture. It's back to creating what is the culture of your team. What do you stand for? And then everybody wants to be part of a winner. And maybe that's easier at 50 than it was at 30. But after you've won a while, say, I just don't need the headache. Bill Belichick, my favorite New England Patriots, talked about, I just want to coach guys that want to be on time and work hard and care about the team. I don't need all the other stuff. And I guess as I get older, I'm getting more that way. Being on this team is so special. I say this, some of you have heard me say it 1,000 times. Nobody remembers the scores, right? You remember, who pulled your teammates' pants down in practice and the coach got mad, right? All the stuff after, traveling to games, the pride of your uniform. That's what we remember. I have many, 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 many memories. I don't remember the score, right? And I think, making that important. The fact that you made the team makes you special. All the people in the stands, you know what? your father will never get in this game. Even if you're sitting on the end of the bench, you at least have a chance to get in the game. Everyone else watching, there's no chance. They don't have a uniform. So that's a special time. And to make just being on the team special, and then get with the parents. You know, why are you ruining this for yourself, sir? You know, someday your son is going to be 25 and this is going to be over. And do you want him to think about what a jerk you were? Or do you want to be able to talk about all these great times and memories you had as a family? I don't know. Those are just some suggestions. Those are some things that have worked. And then sometimes there just is not an answer. Now, sometimes you have to wait for the kid to graduate or for something to happen.
Yes,
Hey, George.
really, it's really hard
that's a hard one.
sometimes on the coach's point of view that these parents is very disturbing. I also have encountered one player, a high school player, when the parents could come in, they will say, oh, let's go home already. So he will ask me, Coach, my parents is here, they're going to fetch me. So what can you do? So let him go, right? You cannot ask, yeah, no, you cannot go home, you stay. What do? You don't take him into the team so that you doesn't have that kind of problem. And then just let him just go and practice, whether you practice the whole length or you practice the half length. And there are things a lot to consider because they are parents. So sometimes it's really, for some new coaches, what I'm talking is that we want to give point of view how to handle this kind of cases for the new coaches. For me, I did not take in that player. I just say that you better do some other sports. When it comes to me, you have to do it, the whole thing, the whole lane of practice before you can go home. Maybe you can ask your parents to come in a little bit late to fetch you and everything. If not, I'm going to take you out because it's really disturbing. Do you agree with me, Coach?
Sure. But then again, I guess now my focus is on the player. And then, you know, our decision impacts the player more than it does us. Okay, you kick the player off the team or you put him on the bench because the mother or father can't be quiet. Well, how is that fair to the kid? Or, okay, I'm going to be strong with the mom. This is the way it will be. But then that poor kid has to spend all the time in the house with mom. So thinking about a solution that doesn't hurt the player. And that's where it gets hard. But that's what I said before. I think now that I'm a parent, I think presenting it in those terms, sir, you know, think about how this impacts your son or your daughter.
But there are some parents, to be fair, they are really quite good and supportive to the team. And there's only a few. So for me, take them out of the team. They have to decide. Now, if they want, I will tell them that I like to teach you. I like to be in the team. But if you are not doing these things, and all the players will follow your example, and that will be a disaster. So you come to have. I let the kids make the best solution. Judgment on his own and explain to him every problem of this kind of attitude and let him choose and ask the parents because they are all under the parents' guidance because they are all below 18 years old. So it's really hard that I have to make the decision for that, right?
Well, right. So we're pushing the conversation forward a little bit, talking about leadership. And maybe it's beginning to kind of become a skill, but do our players know what the top 3 most important things are to us? I will call it a simplicity test. Like if I watched your practice for 30 minutes, what I know what would I say are the most important things? And because I think practice time, especially right now, is so valuable. What do we really, is it rebounding? Is it not turning the ball over? Is it, you know, what are our top 3? do we know that? And then do our players? And I think it's all related. Do our players know exactly what they need to do to get into the game? Again, it's communication and taking the time to maybe talk to each player and say, okay, you never get in the game. For you to play, you need to not throw the ball away. You need to be stronger. I'm not playing you because, but then give them something they can work on. And then if they improve, they can get in the game. Okay, you're playing 10 minutes. If you want to play 20, this is what you need to do to play more. But then give them something they can work on. And then the third thing would be, do they know what they need to do to stay on the floor? Okay, I'm first five. Okay, what do I need to do to play more? Well, it seems like you get tired, so you're the first sub because you get tired. If you had better stamina, you would play more. Okay, that's something as a player I can control. So what are our top three? Do our players really know how to get on the floor and then how to stay on the floor? I think as a coach, that's something that it's just been the last couple of years that I've really thought about it in those terms. Again, being more player-centric. I guess in my younger days, I used to be more program-centric. These are our rules because this is just what I thought was best. And again, maybe family of origin is not the right word, but we need to know ourselves. Where did we come from? Right? I said earlier, I lost my father when I was young, and my first coaches grew up in Italian houses where their families came to America. So the style of communication from my first coaches was very loud. Right? Their parents spoke Italian before they spoke English, and they worked in the factories, and they were hard guys, and toughness and manliness and talk loud and lots of gestures. So as a young coach, those are the coaches I had, and that's the way I coached. Very loud and hands. So knowing that about myself, how do I change that? I think that's important to know about ourselves and our family of origin, so that we can control ourselves and that we can make the changes in ourselves that we want to make. Because I think that has great influence upon how we coach, who we coach, what kind of leaders we are, and are we able to control that? Right? I'm a kid from Milford, Massachusetts, who grew up with Italians. Okay, but here in Asia, we need to be calm. We need to think about what we say. Italian people can shout and yell and box each other. 5 minutes later, they have a drink and laugh. Here in Lucena, if I say the wrong thing, I make an enemy for life. Right? We laugh, but that's true. Right? You can offend somebody and they'll never tell you, and you've made an enemy. So how do you fix it if you don't know? Right? So adjusting, and then become transferring. Okay, you start as a high school coach. Okay, now you become a college coach where you pick your players. Okay, now you become a professional coach or a semi-professional coach where you're dealing with men. As the players change, I think we need to change. We need to grow.
Yes, Coach. Coach David? Coach David?
Oh, okay. I didn't want to unblock my mute until it was time. That was great exchange, guys. I want to shift gears just a little bit here to get really down in the grassroots. I want to get in and pull out the weeds a little bit here. Coach, if you were sitting in front of 300 coaches from all over the Philippines, and now you're wearing your chaplain hat, okay? And you wanted to tell them why chaplains are so important to basketball and sports in general. Can you give us that speech that you would share with those pastors, coaches, why it's so important to have a chaplain there to do this side of what they're trying to do? So could you share that?
Yes, I think we're only as good as our team, right? LeBron James couldn't win in Cleveland until Kyrie Irving came, right? And he went to Miami and he needed teammates. And dealing with players, dealing with administration, dealing with parents, dealing with all the things we have to deal with, having a chaplain on my team takes some of that weight off of my shoulders. As an older man and as a coach, I like the term coach. I'm not the player's friend, I'm not their father. I'm not, there are a lot of roles that basketball culture wants me to play that I don't really want, that I'm not equipped to play. But having a chaplain on the team gives the player that opportunity to go to that person for guidance. Okay, if mom and dad aren't happy with the coach and I can't explain it to the coach, well, I can explain it to my chaplain. Or, there are things that, okay, if I tell coach, that I'm struggling with drinking. Okay, if I go to my coach and say, I'm late for practice because, I'm drunk half the time, not that they would say it that way, but to have a chaplain in their life to confess to or to ask advice to, I think could really, really help that player. And then I think a chaplain is really, really good at supporting the player. And I think our kids today, our men today, I guess I'm speaking as a man about men's coaching. We need to uplift our boys. There are so many influences in our society that tear them down. You're not smart enough. You're not tall enough. You're not handsome enough. You're not making enough money. There's lots and lots of voices in their head. And a chaplain can really help them find peace, can help them find self-esteem, can help them refocus their values to things they can control and to things that are really important, so that when life is tearing them down, that chaplain can come alongside and build them back up. What do you think, David? Pretty good?
Yeah, I think so. That's a good start, Coach. When I first came here to the Philippines, and then I started integrating, because as my son wants to play basketball also. He was 10 years old at the time, and of course it started slow, and he had one of those coaches that likes to holler. Oh, and he was actually the school guard, at the gate there. So, and then of course Josh would have to get there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and usually it was just Josh that showed up. The rest of the team never came. And then when we eventually found a Christian coach here, and things started to change a little bit, but still I started seeing some things that just I was shocked, that even a Christian coach would behave this way. And then I started seeing the greater picture. So, when we're dealing with things, it's not always apples and oranges, it's many more different fruit. And so as a chaplain, I also got involved in chaplaincy for the same reason, because I was there. Then I could start counseling, and players started coming to me, but that first coach didn't see the benefit of having a chaplain. He wanted to be that one that would bring the huddle all the time, and so there was kind of a division there, and I had a hard time with that head coach. And so eventually another coach and I went away together, and now I have a relationship with Coach Joseph Galermo that's more realistic. He was praying to have a chaplain, and so it's great to be answer someone's prayer. But can you answer how you got involved in chaplaincy? How did that start? And then how is to get in even deeper than what you just shared, the chaplaincy ministry.
Well, and I think the other benefit is the players have someone to hold the coach accountable. Right? It doesn't matter what I say. I have somebody in my life that I trust to come to me and say, Coach Rick, you have a blind spot here. You're not quite seeing this. Or Coach Rick, I know your heart's in the right place, but this is what you're communicating. And as a brother,
yeah.
I just want to bring that to your attention.
That's good. That's really good. Yeah, you have that relationship, and if you don't, it will become very obvious. And that's not good when a coach isn't listening to the chaplain.
Yeah, and I guess
it doesn't hold out to victory.
my role in chaplaincy isn't so much being the chaplain to a specific team. it's counseling pastors how to do it more effectively.
Yeah, that's good.
Care Sports is really 2 tracks: community development, coaching clinics, player clinics, being involved in whatever I can be there. But then it's training Filipino pastors to more effectively use sports evangelism. And part of that is, how do they leverage, their position in their community, in new ways. Again, I see, doesn't matter the denomination, churches are full of women. No, really, go to mass and you see women and you see kids.
Yeah. And
whatever the denomination, men are almost an unreached people group here in the Philippines. And
Yes.
Again, it's so hard to be a man in the Philippines, and I don't think we talk about that enough. Whether the pressures are from ourselves or from the society, I don't think
Right.
it's crab mentality. There's just lots of things pulling us down. And
Yes.
that was my first dream of a coaches association. Guys that understand, I'm just going to pledge to not say something negative about you. Right? We can fight like cats and dogs, and I can try to kick you in the teeth, and I'm going to pull your heart out and eat it in front of you if I can. But I'm not going to let anybody else criticize you, because I know how hard that is.
Yes.
But that's really hard.
Yes. Well, we also noticed during this COVID crisis that a lot of those coaches were suffering because they lost their income, just like a lot of pastors. They, once they didn't gather anymore, whether it was their teams or their congregations, it's the same thing. Their funding cut off, and now they're suffering. So I spent more time, visiting pastors and coaches and trying to help them survive. And so it obviously it's a time where we start putting our number one as number one. Now that we're looking up and we're looking to where we should have been all along, I'm hoping now that people understand that success without God involved is not success at all. It's maybe in a worldly sense, but if you're getting money and you're doing it for the wrong reasons and so forth, or you're winning games, but your integrity is zero. I like to look at the Golden State Warriors, an example of a team that was doing it right. I remember when they won their first championship, and Steph Curry was out there in an interview on the court, and when he came back in, they of course they had been shaking up the champagne, but the first thing they did, I saw it on the video, is they all came around, laid hands on each other, and they prayed. And so we got a glimpse into their locker room, a glimpse we don't normally see. So I'm excited, Coach, that you have that mindset and you're continuing to do this. And I want to bless your ministry and bless you. I'm thankful for you being here in the Philippines. I feel like I got a buddy now. You've been up there, I've been down here. You've been actually just over there, not too far away, because I'm here in Negros, But that sometimes can be like a million miles away if you don't know they're there. So thank you for your service here in the Philippines and continuing to do what you're doing there. So it's really not a question now. It's just a point of, just enjoying this time together. And I hope someone else has a question. I'll turn it back.
Well, and I think it's, as a group, being more professional. It was easy before to look down on coaches because it's just as a general group in the province, maybe we weren't as good,
Yeah.
I don't know, but the more that, and I guess I'll speak as a coach in the province, it's hard to demand more rights. It's hard to demand more money, unless I'm adding value to my school or I'm adding value to my team. So anything we can do to be more professional and add value, then we can be a little more demanding as a profession.
Yes.
And that's why I'm really cheering those guys in Manila with the National Coaches Association and all the things that are happening in the national level. Put more pressure on schools and put more pressure on teams so that this becomes a profession. It isn't just a timeline, it becomes a profession, and then there's a pathway.
Yeah, Coach Louis and Coach Calvin are working on that manual for BCAP, and so that we'll have that standardized approach at least, and there'll be a ability to license at the different levels. So the understanding, because under AAU in the States, you have, you know, specific things to protect children, you know, which right now we don't really have. You know, a coach can abuse, and they may get away with it. I've seen that happen because the parents are afraid to report it. So eventually you'll see a normalization and see a more professional, I guess, you know, pipe where things can come from all the provinces. Every player will have an opportunity, and every coach to be recognized for who they are and their character and their skill, not just skill, but, you know, also including that character, because they're a standardized licensing approach that if you have a coach with an attitude, a character problem, he's not going to be promoted. You know, there's going to be limitation because, you know, it's going to affect those players as well as the other coaches, and of course the reputation of sports in general. So it's great, you know, and of course chaplaincy, we have an opportunity to minister at all different levels to everyone, including the referees, and, you know, and so it's fun. So thank you very much for coming on today and sharing with us.
Thank you, Coach. Coach Enrico.
Well, Coach Berry, I just want to take this quick this opportunity to thank you, Coach, being here. And, you know, it was been a nice talk, Coach. I just want to, just quick, if we could just one more, and that's the last for me. Coach, what is actually how's the experience of, you know, when you went to the NBTC, and what is actually that you've learned when you get that experience, and can you share that with us, Coach?
Sure. One last thing to really, for me, one thing that we could really do to make our lives easier, we need to get some educated coaches as administrators of schools. Right? As soon as we get people in decision-making positions, they can make the decisions to treat athletics more professionally. So that's just something else we need to really think about. How do we get some spies in that next level of leadership that can professionalize it? Anyway, so your question about NBTC. What I learned was there are really passionate, great coaches all over. When I first came, I want to say this in a positive way. There were people in Manila willing to train, but there wasn't a mechanism, or there wasn't a way for information and knowledge to go from Manila, Cebu to the province. And NBTC was one of those pathways that allowed knowledge to flow, because I met lots of great people, all passionate, smart men and women coaches that wanted to learn, but it was really hard. Internet wasn't really up and running, and the information was in Manila. So NBTC, I think, created those relationships where it's easier to get information. So one thing I think it helped with is coaches' education. And then it linked coaches together where maybe we're not friends with everybody, but like Coach Rael Diaz down in Davao. I never would have met Coach Diaz, right? I mean, and it's easy to think he's going in 15 different directions, like his hair's on fire, you know, but there's a guy now that's like a friend. So NBTC connected me with quality people all over the Philippines, and it allowed me to grow my network. And so I think those are, and now as players, I think I talked about that before. I haven't been in NBTC for a number of years, so I really can't speak to the effectiveness of it now. But that original concept of the better players in our community have a better chance of being the next generation of leaders. Now, maybe not always, but the qualities of those really good players are probably going to mean that they're going to finish school, and they're going to either go to Manila and come back and they're going to open businesses, and they're going to have influence in their community because because of their reputations. So really focusing on them could have had such an impact in the next generation. So I think MBTC really did a great job of thinking long-term. We think about practice today, this season, recruiting for next season. But I think MBTC, those guys were really smart about who are the 13, 14, 15-year-old leaders now that are going to be 25-year-old leaders, and then 45-year-old barangay captains and mayors and governors and businessmen. So the impact of MBTC, I don't think we're going to know for another 10 years.
Thank you so much. Like I said, it's been a pleasure. Been a pleasure to meet you, Coach. Thank you so much.
The pleasure is mine. I really, really appreciate the chance to come and share and realize this is one point of view. I'm one person with one set of experiences. Take maybe one or two things I've said, and if it helps you, this has been great. If you want my email or cell number, Coach Mel has it. If you want to share information or you have more questions, find me on Facebook, whatever. I'm here to help.
Thank you, Coach. Any other question, coaches, before we end, Coach?
Thank you, Mel, for inviting me again to join the session. And I learned from Coach Rick. Thank you very much for your enlightenment in coaching and in characters and building and everything. And I'd like to say hello to Carmelo Alas. Kamusta ka na?
Good morning, Coach.
It's been a long time not seeing you.
Yeah. Sayang kasi, Coach, eh. Di tayo nagkita when I was assistant coach of Coach Louie in PBA.
Yeah.
But if you need my help or anything, just text me or call me.
Where are you based right now?
Lucena with Coach Milky. I'm helping his team.
Okay. I hope your team can join the UCPL. Oh.
Think about it. We have to find a sponsor.
With Carmelo Alas is there, he can easily look for a sponsor.
Thank you, Coach. Coach, before we end, any last word, Coach Rick Berry? Yes, Coach Rick.
Go ahead, Larry.
No, but for me, my greatest trophies in life are people. If you take nothing else, I hope that I've communicated that. I couldn't tell you what games we've won or what games we've lost, but I'm really, if I were to die today, I'm really proud of those people that have come behind me, and I hope you all have that experience. I hope as you all get older that you can look back and say, wow, I was really around some great people, and by the grace of God, I planted some seeds in people and they grew. And I think that's such a wonderful feeling to have as we get older.
That's right. That's right.
Well said.
It's really, the players are your trophy, really. I can see it wrong because I'm now 60. I can see all my players are doing good, although they may not be a rich guy, but they are doing just fine in their community, and I'm proud of them.
Well, we got a long way.
And before we end again, Coach, I would like to thank NABA, North American Basketball Association, Pamilya Washington, D.C., ECK Apparel, B-Mart, Filipino Grocery, Team Rich, Rich the Unreachable, Teams Spartan Basketball, featuring good leaders, featuring good character. Thank you so much. Before we end, coaches, may I ask Coach David Bessie to have a closing prayer?
Absolutely. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we praise you. We glorify your name. We come to you and thank you for this time that we got with spend with Coach Rick and the other coaches here, Lord, around the world, Lord, that the impact you're going to have through this conversation of bringing us closer together and to learn the things that we need to learn, Lord. We continue to lift up our countrymen here, Lord, that are suffering, that you would bring that peace that they need in the middle of the storms that are coming. And Lord, to help us to reach out and to touch them in your love, Lord, including the wards that you've entrusted with us in basketball. So we praise you for the results in Jesus' name. Amen. And amen.
Man,
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
nice seeing you guys again.
Rick,
Till next time.
yeah, it's good to finally meet you, buddy. So,
All right, and
yeah, awesome. Hey guys, I got to run. I've got this apostolic thing that we're going on at the same time, and you know, it's you know, I got all these different hats on. So God bless you guys. We'll see you later. Okay.